Stories have been told for practically as long as humans have existed. From paintings on cave walls to written stories and theater, humans have a knack for envisioning and composing stories, either fictional or non-fictional. The mediums in which people tell stories are always evolving as well. Movies, books, plays, and the topic of this video, video games. And the latter part of that can largely be traced back to one cutesy little video game from 1987 called Final Fantasy. In this video, I want to talk about the Final Fantasy series. This series holds a special place in mine and many others' hearts, and has undeniably played a massive role in shaping video games as we know them today. So, let's dive in. The original Final Fantasy, while a pretty short and not very deep game by today's standards, was groundbreaking at the time. It was released in 1987 for the rather underpowered Nintendo Entertainment System. Prior to Final Fantasy, video games were just seen as mindless beat boops and high scores. But then, Final Fantasy came along and used the primitive medium of video games to tell a story, create a world, and immerse the player. Now, saying that Final Fantasy was the first game to do this simply isn't true. Games such as Castlevania and Metroid came first, and they had their own stories to tell and worlds to share. But Final Fantasy truly pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible in video games. It had dungeons, secrets and treasures to find, a leveling and job class system, and all of this on a tiny little system where most games were just simple beat boops and high scores. And all of this is simply the first game. There are 15 more, and each one innovates in new and unique ways. What I'm getting at here is that the series has remained constantly innovative ever since its inception. While some concepts don't work and others do, the developers learn from their mistakes and each game builds off of the last. I have recently been playing all of the mainline Final Fantasy games in order, starting with 1, then 2, then 3, and so on. When you play the games like this, you can see how the series is constantly evolving. As the hardware that the games are on evolve, so too do the games. The stories become more complex, going from the simplicity of FF1 to the complex lore of FF7, and the graphics become more detailed and refined, going from this, to even this, shit, wrong picture. I mean, to this. And oh boy, the music? The music is perfection in virtually all of the games. The music went from this to this, and then to this. There's an old saying in the Final Fantasy community. Nobuo Uematsu, the lead composer for the first 10 games, created the Mona Lisa with a box of crayons. He has created exceptional music and on incredibly limited hardware. And even future composers have created incredible tracks on their own right. To sum up, the Final Fantasy series embodies evolution. The first game was incredibly innovative, and the series has remained such ever since. Witnessing the changes go on through the series and experiencing the stories and gameplay that go along with it is simply breathtaking. If you go online and search up, what is the best Final Fantasy game, I bet you'll find at least 4 or 5 different answers. Many people will say that FF7 is the best. It's the most iconic and well-known game in the series, has a gripping story filled with plot twists and relatable characters, and has incredible music. But, for every person who says that FF7 is the best, you'll see another that says that FF6 is actually better. And then you'll see people that say that FF10 is better, or FF9, or FF14. Why is this? Well, this is because the series is incredibly subjective. You see, every game in the series tackles different themes, creates different characters, and has a different tone to it. One game may speak to one person in a very deep, personal level, while it just doesn't have the same effect on others. Let me demonstrate what I mean with a personal anecdote. My personal favorite Final Fantasy game is FF9. This game embodies the themes of death, making use of the time you're given, and existentialism. The characters and story are very much built to convey these themes. Examples of such are the two characters VIII and Kuja. VIII is one of the protagonists of the game, and he starts off as a shy and timid black mage who is afraid of his origins and his limited lifespan. Kuja is the antagonist of the game. He starts off as narcissistic, flamboyant, and nihilistic, but once he is defeated, he has an epitome that life isn't as meaningless as he thought it out to be. Both characters are eventually two sides of the same coin, as they are both artificially created beings with limited lifespans, but they choose to cope with it in vastly different ways. VIII does his best to make use of the time he was given, while Kuja curses the world, lamenting that he was never given a chance in life. This story speaks to me on a personal level because I consider myself an existentialist. I believe that though life has no inherent meaning, you can forge your own. Now, this story may not resonate with everyone. Not everyone will find the characters relatable, and not everyone will buy into the themes of existentialism the same way I do. Everybody will have a different list of favorite Final Fantasy games, and it's a result of how subjective the series is. FF4 embodies the themes of betrayal and redemption, 5 the themes of self-discovery, 6 the themes of loss, 7 the theme of personal identity, and 8 the theme of romance. These themes are bound to resonate with different people in different ways, and that's why nobody can decide on what the best game in the series is. It's too subjective. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. There isn't one definitive best Final Fantasy game. Everyone has to decide what the best Final Fantasy game is for them personally, and for me, that is 9. Final Fantasy is a beautiful series. It manages to invoke emotion like no other, tells gripping stories in an interactive manner, and has pushed boundaries for every platform that the games have released on. It's no wonder that the series is as popular as it is, and it has had a massive impact on the gaming landscape as a whole. Compare Final Fantasy to the likes of The Great Gatsby, Frankenstein, and other famous stories. It may seem like a bit of a stretch, but think about it. Everyone will interpret these stories in different ways, and that's what makes them truly beautiful in my opinion. Anyways, yap time over. Thank you very much for watching.